just explain to everybody the jobs you've had here, what your job title means now that you oversee.
Yeah, so I've been with the Bucs since 2011. This is my 13th season coming up. Started as a pro scouting assistant, I think was my title. Moved up to pro scout the next year. When Jason got here, I became the national scout on the college side, so I was responsible for the eastern half of the U.S. of all the college players. I think it was the next year, went to pro scouting coordinator and then pro scouting director, and then recently was promoted to director of player personnel. So most of the same tasks, just have a little more work to do on the college side than I did in the previous 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so tell us the difference in the college versus the pro side of scouting. Yeah. How is it similar or different?
You know, you're looking for the same thing. You're looking for guys that love football and you're evaluating the same kind of skill sets. The day-to-day is very different. Our college scouts are gone most of the fall. They're on the road a lot. They're living a very different life than the pro scouts who are in the building every day. So it's nice to be able to build the relationships with the coaches, with the players, and then the college scouts are building relationships with all the college coaches. So very different, but at the end of the day, we're all looking for the same kind of player. The pro side is just, you know, during the season it turns into more of like, how do we help us win the next game? So with the advanced scouting, going out to see the team that we play the next week, or there's an injury on Sunday, how do we turn this around? Who's available? How do we get the best replacement for whoever's down? So it's a little bit more constricted in the timeline. There's tighter deadlines, more of a impact with all that stuff during the season, but then obviously it flips once free agency's over, that, you know, the ideal way to build a team is through the draft. So the importance of that really takes precedent.
And so do you think there are certain positions that are more challenging to scout than others?
Yeah, I definitely do, especially on the college side, making those projections. I think with the NFL players, you kind of see what they are. They may need to change the scenery for a different scheme, different coaching staff, different city. The college stuff is a little harder, especially with the offensive linemen, because the schemes in college are so different. We're seeing that now with the quarterbacks too. We were joking the other day, we had some of the quarterbacks in for visits and we're like, have you been in a huddle? Have you been under center? Which those are questions that you didn't used to have to ask. But the offensive lineman in college is a lot different. There's a lot of technical stuff that they don't come into the league with as prepared as they used to. So you're kind of falling back on the athleticism, the intangibles, do they play hard? And then safety is probably another one, because a lot of teams play their safeties very differently. And the ones that show up, the ones that are around the ball, kind of make it easier on you, but then sometimes guys are asked to play a certain way, play from a certain depth, and they don't necessarily impact the game the way that their skill set may make you think they could. And then unpacking, like, is that on them? Is that what they're asked to do? So kind of answering those questions makes it tough on the college players.
That does feel like such a challenge as a scout, particularly on the college side. You use the word projection, that this idea that you are almost having to predict a future, and we never know how people are going to respond to certain situations. And so how does that make it challenging for you guys to even evaluate how a scout is doing when they could have maybe done everything right and then a player still become a bust, just because we don't know what humans are going to respond to? So how do you guys try to decide, you know, this scout deserves a promotion, this scout isn't doing so well? What are those things? Yeah,
that's tough. That's exactly right, because I think Jason said this 100 times in all of our meetings, that we feel pretty confident we're not going to miss on the player's skill set, but the person is going to, the type of person is going to be what makes that player meet what we think or fall short of it. So it is very hard, especially the quarterbacks. They may go somewhere and they may have this great skill set, and then just the talent around them and the opportunity that they have may not match up. But for the scouts, like, we have a lot of really passionate people on our staff, and they love it, and they're passionate about when they get in the meetings and they have their chance. So it really goes back on that. Like, just like we're looking for players that love it, we want the scouts with us in those meetings on the road all year that really love it. And there's definitely guys that have strengths at certain positions, and we'll lean on that a little bit more when the time comes. And, you know, hey, can you cross-check this position? Can you do receivers? You have a really good track record of us looking back on the receivers. Or, you know, hey, these defensive linemen, we changed the scheme a little bit. Or, you know, can you just change your focus on this position a little bit, because we're looking for the faster guy. We may not need a hunker down, bigger body, so let's kind of shift a little bit.
When you get a new offensive coordinator or a new head coach or some changes in what your schemes might be, how does that affect what you guys look for and who you're going to be scouting overall?
Yeah, I think our scouting staff has been around long enough, whether here, elsewhere. You know, we all know what we're looking for. as far as the athletic traits and the position traits. So really it's how you wrap up that player is based off of what the coaches want. So we may be looking for the same thing. We may be saying the same thing about the player, about his position traits, but at the end of the day, how they fit our roster then is impacted by who's the head coach, who are the coordinators. So, you know, it's been great working with Todd because we have familiarity with him, and then with Dave coming in has been really good. He's really passionate about this process too, so we've had a lot of great conversations. We had our draft meetings the other day with him. He was awesome, and the whole offensive staff was great to work with.
How does this draft, in your mind, match up not only just with the Bucs' needs, but then the idea of depth that, you know, your staff and Jason have proven year after year that some of these later rounds you can still find some gems. And so maybe what are some of those positions or areas that you feel like, you know what, maybe not the first round guy, but we're still going to find some gems later on?
I think we're all super passionate about that third day of the draft. You know, all the positions. I think we've had success with some of the smaller school linemen, whether it's in the draft or in free agency, but like those guys that maybe play tackle in college, that we can move inside to center or guard like Jensen did, like Ali Marpet did, like Kappa did. And always looking for pass rushers. There's a really good group of those mid-tier pass rushers. Someone slips through the cracks in the late rounds. We're always looking for guys that have sack production. In college, we find that really transfers over. So there's a lot of depth at those two spots. A lot of depth at running back too. We feel really good about our running back room right now. Obviously drafted Rashad last year, Sneak still here, and then signing Chase Edmonds. But you can never have enough good ones as we've seen. So we'd be excited about some of the mid-round backs too.
Yeah. For you, as you look back at, you talk about this is going to be your 13th season. You've done a lot of scouting, both pro and college at this point. You've evaluated a lot of players. What are the biggest areas you've seen growth in yourself as a scout? Or if you were to look back at maybe some of those early scouting reports, what do you think would be the things that you'd be like, oh man, I can't believe I did that or said that?
I think it's a lot easier now and a lot more natural to just really like trust the players that you love watching. I think when you're first starting, like, oh, I love this guy, but I don't want to be the one that like has the high grade on the player, because you're like, he may not be that good, but like you can feel it and there's a passion about it. And we always talk to the scouts like don't read your reports in the meetings. Like, we want to see your mannerisms. We want to see you get excited about the player and hear you get excited. So there's a lot of instances of like, I wish I would have, like, you know, that was my guy. I wish I would have done it. Like, that passion and that confidence that you get the more and more you do is probably the biggest thing. And that's what makes it fun. Like, when you have a guy that we draft or we sign as a rookie free agent or based off a tryout, like, and your guy makes it. That's a great feeling for all the scouts.
Yeah, and so then also if you were to maybe say, this is what makes a Buccaneer. As you guys write your scouting reports, as you try to make a case for someone, what are those things going to be that in this year's draft, when we hear you guys talk about whoever you take, what are you going to be saying about them?
Passionate about football, first and foremost. Very tough and competitive on the field. Explosive athlete, very good reactive athlete. And then on top of that, you know, I think we've really done a good job lately of enhancing our focus on the kind of person they are too, and making sure they're a good teammate, good in the locker room, and then good in the community too.